The Galactic Assembly gathered in a crescent-shaped hall of crystalline light, where stars shone faintly through the transparent walls. Every species had sent its admirals, strategists, and warlords, for this was no ordinary meeting. This was the unveiling of Earth's contribution to the Galactic Defense Fleet, a ship humanity had named the Leviathan. And when the humans revealed it, the chamber filled with laughter. Projected in the hall, rotating slowly, was a warship that looked more like a drifting fortress than a vessel. It was colossal, blocky, and armored with plates so thick that its hull appeared primitive compared to the sleek, glimmering star cruisers of the galaxy. Worse still, its engines glowed dimly, weak, sluggish, marking it as unbearably slow. The Krthak admiral clicked its mandibles mockingly. "A relic of stone and iron," it hissed. "Humans drag this beast into our fleets? Do they hope the enemy will die laughing?" Laughter spread among the gathered aliens. The thin-limbed Rinna convulsed in high-pitched trills, while the serpentine Ithori flicked their tongues in amusement. Only the humans did not laugh. Their delegation, small and solemn, stood in silence. The captain of the Leviathan, a weathered woman named Elena Vera, simply met their mockery with a steady, unblinking stare. No defense. No explanations. Just silence. The day of battle came sooner than expected. The Zir Dominion, a warlike species of burning eyes and scaled hides, launched their invasion across the border worlds. Their fleets were vast, numbering in the thousands, and their weapons left planets stripped of life. The Assembly scrambled its armadas to meet them, and there, at the contested star system of Xiphos, the humans brought their Leviathan. Even as the fleets assembled, ridicule continued over open comms. "Try to keep up, humans," jeered Arena, pilot, her sleek interceptor darting past Leviathan's massive frame. "You'll miss the battle if you crawl like that." The Leviathan crept forward, engines burning low, its massive hull catching the light of Xiphos's sun. It looked less like a warship and more like an ancient citadel lost in space. And yet, inside, its armored core, thousands of human engineers and tacticians stood ready, hands trembling over controls of something no other species in the galaxy had dared to build. The first clash came swift and brutal. Zur war fleets tore into the Assembly Armada, their weapons shrieking through void shields, their swarms of drone ships overwhelming defenders. Sleek alien cruisers tried to outmaneuver them, but they were met with a wall of fire that shattered hulls and sent wreckage tumbling into orbit. Amid the chaos, Leviathan advanced, slowly, ponderously, as if unaware of the carnage. Enemy fire struck its hull, sparking against impossibly thick armor. Shields flickered, but the ship pressed on. Its movements seemed pitiful compared to the dance of light, fire, and destruction raging around it. The Zir commander laughed when he saw it approach. "Crush that stone coffin. Show the humans their place." Warships swarmed toward Leviathan, pouring plasma and antimatter rounds into its bulk. From the outside, the ship seemed to endure, not retaliating, as if it had no weapons of its own. The Assembly fleets saw this and jeered. "Do they mean to ram the enemy with their floating fortress?" Perhaps humans still believe in clubs and rocks. But in the command deck of the Leviathan, Captain Elena Vera gave the order in a steady voice. "Arm the gravity ripper." Deep within the ship, a weapon older than fear awakened. It was not a cannon in the conventional sense. It was a scar in physics, a human invention born from desperation and defiance. The gravity ripper did not fire shells, nor beams, nor missiles. It reached into the heart of stars themselves. The Zir fleet surrounded them now, hundreds of ships pelting the Leviathan with fire. On the view screens, Captain Vera watched calmly, hands clasped behind her back, as though awaiting a storm's passing. The weapon officer turned, pale. "Captain, once fired, there's no going back. The effect—" "I know," Vera cut him off. Her voice was steel. "Do it!" The Leviathan fired. There was no flash, no beam, just a low, humming vibration that seemed to roll across the battlefield. At first, nothing happened. Zir ships closed in, confident of their kill. Then, the star of Xiphos screamed. Its light flickered. Its corona writhed like a living beast. And then, as the Gravity Ripper's effect took hold, the star itself tore apart. It did not explode, not in the way stars normally died. Instead, it ripped, as though invisible hands had shredded its very core. Sheets of plasma surged outward in waves, tidal eruptions of light and fire that stretched across space like a god's wrath. The Zur fleet, caught in the eruption, disintegrated in seconds. Hundreds of ships melted into slag, their shields useless against the fury of a ruptured sun. Even vessels miles away were torn apart, dragged into wild gravitational currents that twisted metal like paper. The assembly fleets, those who had mocked humanity, fell silent as they watched. Their ships barely escaped the fringes of the devastation, their crews struck dumb with terror, and in the center of it all, slow and steady, the Leviathan emerged. From the storm, its hull blackened, its armor glowing red but still moving forward, implacable, unstoppable. The battlefield was quiet now. Where once had been fleets of thousands, now drifted wreckage and ash, burning slowly against the background of a wounded star. The assembly channels, once full of mockery, were silent. Not one admiral dared speak. Not one dared laugh. At last, Captain Elena Vera opened comms. Her face appeared across every ship, calm and cold. "You mocked our ship. You mocked our speed. You thought us weak." Her voice carried the weight of silence, of things that could not be unlearned. But humanity does not build for speed. We build for survival. We build for endings. She leaned forward, her eyes unyielding. "Mock us again, and we will rip your stars apart, just as we did today." The galaxy never laughed at human ships again. From that day, every admiral who looked upon the slow, lumbering silhouette of a human dreadnought did not see a relic. They saw a doomsday, a reminder that behind human slowness was patience. Behind their iron armor was endurance. And within their strange minds was a willingness to use weapons no other species dared dream of. The Leviathan became legend, and so did its captain. And whispers spread across the stars, a lesson burned into memory. Mock the humans if you must. But when their ships arrive, no matter how slow, pray they do not fire. The galaxy had already begun writing humanity's obituary. One by one, Earth's colonies had fallen, charred worlds left smoking, orbital stations shattered into rings of debris, entire populations erased. The Zur Dominion, conquerors of a foe. 100 species advanced without pause, crushing human defenses with fleets that blotted out stars. And now, only one ship remained. It drifted from dock above the ruined world of Proxima Prime, engines burning faintly, its massive bulk casting a shadow over the broken planet. The humans had named it the Solstice. It was a dreadnought, yes, but not like the galaxy's sleek predators of war. The Solstice was enormous, sluggish, and armored so thickly that it looked more like an asteroid given engines. To the Zir, it was laughable. To the assembly, it was embarrassing. To humanity, it was all that remained. When the Solstice appeared on the battlefield, the laughter began again. Alien comms crackled with jeers as sleek Zur cruisers scanned the vessel. "Is this the last defense of Earth? A turtle pretending to be a starship?" hissed the Zur fleetmaster. "Our drones will strip it apart piece by piece. The humans die slow today." Even allies of the assembly mocked in private channels. The humans had lost nearly everything, and yet this was the ship they offered as their last hope. Too slow to maneuver, too heavy to retreat, too obsolete to survive. But what no alien knew was the secret carried in its armored belly. The solstice bore a weapon born not from pride but from desperation, a weapon humanity had sworn never to use unless the hour was most dire: the stellar lance. Captain Darius Kane stood at the bridge, his uniform worn, his face drawn with years of war. His crew, the last remnant of Earth's navy, watched him in silence as Zir fleets spread before them like a sea of fire. Thousands of ships, sleek, shining, deadly, against one solitary dreadnought. A young ensign whispered, "They'll crush us before we even reach firing range." Captain Kane's voice was quiet, steady. That's what they believe. The crew exchanged looks, their hands tightening on controls they barely understood. The stellar lance was not a conventional weapon. It was unfinished, unpredictable, dangerous even to its users. But it was the only card left to play. The Zur did not wait. They swarmed. Spearhead destroyers darted forward, pelting the solstice with plasma fire. Shields flared, armor groaned, but the dreadnought pressed on. It moved not with the grace of predators, but with the inevitability of mountains. Every alien commander watching believed the same thing. The humans were walking into their own grave. "Faster!" the Zur fleetmaster roared. "Drive them into the red giant. Let them burn like their colonies." The Zur formation shifted, herding the solstice toward the edge of the system, where an ancient star loomed, a red giant swollen with age, its surface bubbling and spitting storms of plasma. To the Zur, it was humiliation enough, to make the humans' last ship perish against a dying sun. But on the human bridge, Captain Kane whispered, almost reverently, "Perfect." Inside the dreadnought's armored core, engineers worked in fevered silence, coaxing the stellar lance to life. It was not a beam cannon, nor missile, nor railgun. It was something else entirely, a weapon that reached into the fusion heart of a star and forced it to rupture. The very concept terrified other species. To tamper with stellar cores was madness. But humanity, cornered, had forged madness into steel. As the Zur fleet closed in, Kane gave the order. "Arm the lance. Target. The star." The Zur commanders laughed when they saw where the humans aimed. Fools. They fire at suns now? Let them waste their last breath on superstition. The stellar lance fired. There was no beam to see, only a ripple in space, like the shiver of reality itself. The wave struck the red giant. For one heartbeat, the star remained unchanged. Then it began to convulse, its surface boiled, its corona flared like wings. And then, with a soundless scream, the star cracked open. The red giant detonated, not in natural death, but in forced annihilation. Its core tore apart in a storm of plasma and light, energy cascading outward in sheets that shredded entire fleets. The Zir armada, so vast it had blotted out the sky, was consumed in seconds. Ships melted into slag, their shields torn apart as if they were paper. Those who tried to flee were caught in waves of fire that raced faster than their engines could carry them. 1,000 Zur warships died in the span of a breath, and at the center of the inferno, crawling from the chaos, came the solstice, blackened, wounded, but alive. Silence fell across the comms. Every assembly admiral, every Zur commander, every soldier who survived watched in horror as the human dreadnought emerged from a star's corpse. No one mocked now. On the bridge, Captain Kane's crew trembled, not from fear, but from awe. They had unleashed the fury of suns themselves. They had turned the heavens into a weapon. Kane stood tall, his voice carrying across open channels. "You laughed at our ship. You called us slow. You believed us weak. But hear this, and remember it." He leaned forward, his eyes burning like the star they had just slain. "If humanity is ever cornered, we will not surrender. We will not kneel. We will tear down your suns before we fall." From that day onward, the galaxy remembered the solstice. It was no longer the turtle, no longer the relic. It became the nightmare of admirals, the whispered legend of soldiers, the grim reminder of what humans could unleash when pressed against extinction. The Zir Dominion, once unstoppable, faltered. Entire fleets hesitated before engaging human forces for fear another lance might awaken, and so, though humanity had only one ship left, its shadow stretched across the stars, a slow, battered dreadnought. Yet, the most dangerous vessel the galaxy had ever known, the last ship of Earth. The Imperial Hall of Stars glittered with light. 1,000 alien banners hung from its vaulted ceilings, representing the oldest and proudest civilizations of the galaxy. This was no battlefield, no war front. This was spectacle. The Velkari, Empire, rulers of half the known stars, had arranged the gathering. They had crushed countless species into submission, and now they sought to humiliate the newest arrival to galactic politics, humanity. On the polished obsidian dais, the Velkari, Sovereign raised a clawed hand, his voice echoing across the chamber. "Today we see Earth's might," he declared. "They claim to be warriors. They claim to be builders of ships. Let us watch and laugh as they prove themselves." The crowd murmured, amused. Already the projection field lit up, showing the Yabo-E, human vessel chosen for this trial. The Dauntless. It appeared from dock, a massive gray warship that lumbered forward with the dignity of a drifting fortress. Its engines glowed faintly, its armor thick and crude. Against the sleek predator ships of the Velkari, the Dauntless looked ancient. The laughter began immediately. "Is that a freighter they've painted gray?" sneered a Rinna dignitary, her limbs shaking with mirth. "A warship that can barely move," hissed a Zir commander. "Earth sends us a funeral barge." In the crowd, nobles laughed, pointing, jeering. The humans in attendance, few in number, stood silent. Their captain, Elias Rain, tall and scarred, did not flinch. His gaze stayed fixed on the projection, on his ship. The trial was simple. The Velkari would release a fleet of ships to test the Dauntless. It was not meant as battle, but as a demonstration, a chase staged for the amusement of the Empire. As the announcement boomed through the hall, Velkari warships took their places in orbit of a nearby sun. The Dauntless drifted into position. "Slow and unassuming! Begin!" the Sovereign commanded. The Velkari ships surged forward like hunting hounds. The Dauntless crawled through space, its great bulk a tempting sluggish target. The crowd roared with laughter. "Run, humans! Run!" Voices jeered across the chamber. "They cannot even flee! Pathetic!" But inside the Dauntless, the crew was silent. The bridge was lit with dim red glow, officers at their stations, engineers sweating over panels humming with unstable power. In the center, Captain Elias Rain stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He did not look at his crew. He looked at the star. "Are we within range?" he asked. "Aye, Captain," came the reply. "The stellar core manipulator is primed, but, sir, once we fire, there's no turning back." Rain's lips curled in the faintest shadow of a smile. "That's the point." The Velkari ships closed in, weapons primed, their commanders laughing even as they prepared to strike. The Dauntless moved with unbearable slowness, giving no hint of defense. In the hall, nobles leaned forward eagerly. They wanted to see fire tear the human ship apart. They wanted to see humanity broken and humiliated in full view of the galaxy. Captain Rain gave the order. "Activate the manipulator. Let the star speak for us." It began as a ripple across the sun's surface. At first, the Velkari dismissed it. A minor solar flare, harmless. But then the ripple spread, twisting into arcs of energy that licked outward like serpents of fire. The corona thickened, brightened, then lashed out. A wave of plasma, immense and violent, surged across space like a tidal storm. The nearest Velkari cruisers vanished in an instant, consumed by fire that tore through their shields as if they were nothing. The laughter in the Imperial Hall stopped. "Impossible!" a Velkari admiral cried, rising from his seat. "No weapon!" Another lash of the star silenced him. The sun itself, manipulated by the Dauntless, was erupting in fury. Coronal mass ejections flared outward in every direction, twisting into burning whips that lashed the Velkari fleet. Ships turned to molten slag, entire squadrons vanishing in brilliant storms of fire. The audience erupted in panic. Some shouted, in disbelief, others in fear. The sovereign himself leaned forward, his claws digging into the dais. "What have the humans done?" On the bridge of the Dauntless, Captain Rain watched the firestorm unfold with calm eyes. His crew stared in awe as the manipulated sun obeyed their weapons' pull, tearing apart everything in its reach. "We warned them," Rain said softly. "We told them not to mock us. We told them not to force us to reveal what we had built. Now they know," one of his officers whispered, voice trembling. "Sir, we've turned a star into a weapon." Rain's gaze did not waver. "No, we've reminded the galaxy whose hands hold fire. The trial was over. The Velkari fleet was ash. The spectacle had become massacre. When the Dauntless withdrew from the storm, its hull glowed with heat, its armor scarred, but it endured. It did not flee. It did not need to." The Imperial Hall was silent, thousands of eyes fixed on the projection of the lone human ship emerging victorious, where none should have survived. Captain Elias Rain's voice carried across the comms. His face cold, carved from iron. "You mocked us for building ships that are slow. But tell me, what is speed compared to the weight of a star? What is grace compared to fire itself?" He paused, letting the silence deepen, letting fear sink into every listening soul. "If you ever force us to prove ourselves again, remember this. Humanity does not need to outrun you. Humanity does not need to outgun you. Humanity will bring your sons down upon you. That is our answer. That is our strength." No one in the chamber laughed again. The Velkari sovereign, for the first time in centuries, sat speechless. His empire's proudest fleet had been annihilated before his nobles' eyes. Not by a massive armada, not by superior numbers, but by one slow human ship that had reached into the heavens and turned the sun into a blade. Word spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, the legend of the Dauntless grew. Admirals whispered it in fear. Soldiers muttered it as warning. Do not mock the humans. Do not chase their ships. Do not force them to fire. Because the trial meant to humiliate Earth had become a warning etched into history. The trial by fire. From that day forward, whenever a human dreadnought emerged from dock, slow and ponderous against the glittering fleets of alien empires, no one dared laugh. For every admiral remembered the sight of the Velkari's fleet burning in the embrace of their own sun. Every noble remembered the silence in the hall as the Dauntless spoke for humanity, and every empire remembered the promise Captain Rain left behind. Mock us if you wish, but slow ships carry the weight of stars.